Most people think impersonation online is rare, something that only happens to celebrities or public figures. In my opinion, that assumption is outdated because ordinary people get impersonated constantly, often by someone targeting their friends, family, or coworkers for a scam. Today, I am not going to give you a vague, just report it answer. I want to walk you through exactly how to handle this, step by step, including the parts that actually determine how fast it gets resolved. This video focuses entirely on protecting your own identity and reputation. It will not cover anything related to accessing another account or impersonating anyone yourself. Welcome to Cyber Safety Brief, where we explain simple cybersecurity advice for everyday Americans. This video is based on authentic, legal, and publicly available cybersecurity information. Everything here is for awareness and protection only. Point 1. Why ordinary people get impersonated. Let us start by breaking the assumption that this only happens to famous people. What most people underestimate is that impersonation is often not about you specifically. It is about your network. Someone creates a fake account using your name and photos, not because they care about you personally, but because your friends, family, and coworkers already trust your real name and face. That built-in trust is exactly what makes impersonation such an effective tool for scams. Here is a real-life type of example. Someone creates a fake profile using another person's public photos and name, then sends friend requests to that person's actual contacts, eventually messaging them with a fake emergency or investment opportunity. In my opinion, this works precisely because the people receiving these messages recognize the name and face, and their guard naturally drops. What I personally think makes this particularly effective for scammers is how little actual work it takes. Public photos are often freely available on someone's profile, and building a convincing fake account can take just minutes. The real damage happens not from the account itself, but from the built-in trust it borrows from the real person's existing relationships, something a brand new, unfamiliar scam account could never achieve on its own. Point 2. How to confirm it's actually impersonation. Before reacting, it is worth taking a moment to confirm exactly what you are dealing with. What I personally think matters here is distinguishing between a few different situations that can look similar at first glance. Sometimes it is a genuinely fake account, built entirely to deceive people. Sometimes it is an old account you forgot about or lost access to years ago. Sometimes it is simply someone with a similar name and no actual bad intent at all. Each of these situations calls for a slightly different response. A real-life type of scenario. Someone panics after finding an account using their name, only to later realize it was an old account they created years ago and forgot the login for. In my opinion, taking a few minutes to genuinely investigate before reporting saves time and helps you choose the right resolution path from the start, whether that is account recovery, a standard impersonation report, or simply moving on if there is no real overlap or harm. What I personally think is a useful way to quickly assess the situation is checking a few basic details on the suspicious account. When it was created, how many mutual connections it has with your real network, and whether it has been actively contacting people. An account that is brand new, has several of your real contacts already added, and has sent messages recently is a much clearer red flag than an old, inactive account with no real activity. Point 3. Documenting the impersonation properly. Once you have confirmed it is a genuine impersonation situation, documentation becomes critical. What most people underestimate is how quickly a fake account can disappear once the person running it senses they have been noticed. Take screenshots of the profile itself, including the username, photos being used, any posts or messages sent from the account, and ideally, screenshots from people who received messages from the fake account, if they are willing to share them with you. Here is a real-life type of example. Someone reports an impersonation account and it gets deleted within hours before the platform's review team ever sees the original content. Without documentation, proving what happened after the fact becomes far harder, especially if you need to warn others or escalate the situation later. The way I look at it, thorough documentation is not about being dramatic. It is simply protecting yourself in case this becomes a repeated pattern rather than a single incident. What I personally think adds real value here is also documenting the timeline itself, not just the content. Note roughly when you first discovered the account, when you reported it, and any responses you received from contacts who mention being messaged by it. If the same person creates a new impersonation account later, this timeline becomes valuable context that shows a pattern of behavior rather than an isolated incident. Point 4. Reporting it the right way. Now let us talk about actually reporting the account, because how you report it matters just as much as whether you report it. What I personally think most people get wrong is selecting a vague reporting category instead of specifically flagging impersonation. Nearly every major platform treats impersonation as a distinct, more urgent category compared to general content complaints, because it is recognized as a direct safety issue, not just an annoyance. Selecting the correct category and including clear documentation tends to move your report through review much faster. A real-life type of example: 2 people report separate impersonation accounts. One selects a general complaint category with minimal detail. The other specifically selects impersonation, attaches screenshots, and briefly explains that the account is being used to contact real friends and family with false information. In my opinion, the second report is far more likely to get prioritized simply because it gives the platform's review process exactly what it needs to act quickly and confidently. What most people underestimate is that many platforms also allow a form of identity verification during this reporting process, sometimes through a photo ID or a short video confirmation, specifically for impersonation cases. While this extra step can feel uncomfortable, it exists precisely because it is one of the fastest ways to prove you are the real person, which tends to significantly speed up the platform's decision to remove the fake account. Let me know in the comments if you agree with this. Do you think platforms should require stronger identity verification to prevent impersonation in the first place? Point 5. Warning your network without causing panic. While you are waiting for a platform to review your report, there is an important step many people skip entirely. What most people underestimate is how much damage can happen in the time between reporting an impersonation account and it actually being removed. A short, calm public post letting your network know that a fake account is circulating without excessive detail that could tip off the person running it can prevent your friends and family from falling for a scam in that window. In my opinion, the tone of this warning matters. A calm, factual message tends to be taken seriously and shared appropriately, while an overly dramatic or panicked message can sometimes cause unnecessary alarm or get lost in the noise. A real-life type of scenario: someone posts a brief, clear warning about a fake account impersonating them, and several contacts who had already received suspicious messages immediately recognize the pattern and avoid falling for it, thanks to that early warning. What I personally think works especially well is being specific without oversharing, mentioning that a fake account is circulating using your name and photos, and asking people not to accept requests from any account besides your known existing one gives your network exactly what they need to protect themselves without turning the situation into unnecessary drama. Point 6. When impersonation crosses into something more serious. Sometimes impersonation is not just annoying or embarrassing. It becomes something that actually causes financial or reputational harm. What I personally think is important to recognize is the point where this stops being a platform issue and becomes something that may involve additional steps. If someone has used a fake account impersonating you to scam your contacts out of money or to damage your professional reputation in a serious way, filing a report with local law enforcement alongside your platform report is a reasonable and legitimate next step. Having your documentation ready from the start makes this process significantly smoother. I do not think this is about being paranoid. I think it is about being prepared and understanding that platform reporting is usually the fastest first step, but it is not always the final one in more serious cases. Point 8. Why family members are often the real target. I want to spend a moment on something I think deserves special attention because it changes how urgently you should treat this issue. What most people underestimate is that impersonation scams frequently target the most vulnerable people in someone's network specifically, often older relatives or family members who may be less familiar with how common these fake accounts have become. An attacker impersonating you is not really targeting you directly. They are using your identity as a tool to reach someone else who trusts you completely. Here is a real-life type of example. An older parent receives a message from what looks like their adult child's account, claiming to be in an emergency and urgently needing money sent through an unusual payment method. Because the account looks familiar, complete with real photos and a matching name, the parent's natural instinct to help immediately overrides their usual caution. In my opinion, this is exactly why warning your family specifically, not just your broader network, matters so much, and why a quick phone call to older relatives explaining that a fake account exists and what to do if they receive a suspicious message can prevent a genuinely devastating outcome. Point 9. Reducing your risk of future impersonation. Once the immediate situation is resolved, it is worth thinking about how to reduce the chances of this happening again. The way I look at it, this is not about disappearing from the internet entirely. It is about being intentional with your public presence, reviewing your privacy settings so that not every photo and detail about your life is fully public, and periodically searching your own name to see what comes up gives you a realistic sense of how visible and reusable your public identity actually is. What I personally think is a smart, low-effort habit is doing this name search maybe once every few months, treating it the same way you might treat checking your credit report periodically. It does not prevent every possible case of impersonation, but it means you are far more likely to catch it early, before it has a chance to reach very many people. There is one more preventive step worth mentioning. What most people underestimate is how much a public, easily downloadable profile photo collection makes impersonation easier to pull off convincingly. This does not mean hiding every photo of yourself, but being thoughtful about which images are fully public versus visible only to your confirmed connections can reduce how much material a would-be impersonator has readily available to work with. I would also like to know your opinion. Do you think impersonation is becoming more common, or do you think platforms have actually gotten better at catching it? If this video helps you understand online safety more clearly, like the video and subscribe to Cyber Safety Brief for more simple cybersecurity advice. Stay alert, stay informed, and stay safe online. Before you go, comment below if you or someone you know has ever dealt with an impersonation account and how it got resolved.